Dr. Joanna Talewicz from Poland. She is an assistant professor at the Institute of Ethnology and Cultural Anthropology in the University of Warsaw. And our third guest, that's Mr. Iulian Stoian from Romania. And he is the head of public policy department at the National Agency for Roma, Government of Romania. And Ms. Agnes, another guest from Hungary, Budapest. She is independent researcher and journalist. And our friend, Mr. Orhan Tahir, he basically from Bulgaria, but now he is in Berlin, Germany. He is a political scientist and lawyer. Beside that, our Secretary General of ARSP, Shri Shyam Parande ji, and the advocate Rajesh Gogunaji, the Secretary General of Human Rights Defense International. Center for Roma Studies and Cultural Relations, ARSP, and Human Rights Defense International are jointly hosting this commemorative event on the theme of Forgotten Victims, the tragic story of Nazi genocide against Roma and Sinti, to pay tribute to the victims and learn more about the Holocaust from our very renowned and prominent panelist, and find out the ways to counter the contemporary anti-Gypsyism. This event is an endeavor to clear out the historical amnesia and address the xenophobic sentiment and raise awareness about Roma Sinti Holocaust amongst Indian population. In recent years, awareness of Roma Holocaust began gaining ground and started to be trusted owing to reporting of first-hand testimonies, memories, and annual commemoration of Romocide or genocide, or we call in Romani, Oraimos or Samudari Pen, and organizing different academic conferences and seminars, publications, and scholarship. Roma community across the world began to observe the 2nd of August as a commemoration of Auschwitz Holocaust for testifying the strength of the survivors, besides making advocacy of Roma rights, social inclusion, and improvement of current socio-economic situations of Roma community across the world. The recent scholarship has started to improve our understanding of this horrendous atrocity perpetrated by Nazi regime and its collaborators. However, the recognition of Roma genocide still remains inadequate in various countries till today. I request Shaban, please mute your, the system, your computer. That is creating echo. Yeah, thank you. So, from the first anti-Romani law for the banishment of Roma from European Empire by Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I in 1498 to the present day, when the Romani person named Stanislav Thomas was killed by Czech police officer who knelt on his neck till his death in June 2021. And 20-year-old Romani youth Nikos Sabanis, who was shot dead in Athens by police, who fired more than 30 rounds at him in October 2021. Anywhere, almost everywhere, the human rights are violated and threatened, even in the 21st century. Even we talk about, the European countries, they are the proponent and exponent of human rights, and they are so-called be the champion of human rights. But in their own eyes, the human rights and the fundamental rights of the Roma community and Sinti are threatened in day-to-day life, even in 21st century. Xenophobia and racist violence targeting Roma is the order of the day. You can find the news, the racist violence against the Roma community. That is a very common phenomenon. Discrimination against Roma in employment, education, healthcare, administrative, and other public services is reigning supreme in most of the European societies. And there is a reluctance from the European authorities to address such issues. Hate speech intensifies the anti-Roma stereotypes. This manifests the contemporary persecution, ethnic racism, stigmatization, and prejudice against Roma community. We today have the very prominent and renowned panelist. So rather than I speak, so we love to listen, and we are very much interested and excited in listening to our panelists today. Uh, they have the different perspective, and they will speak about the Roma Holocaust in a different perspectives. Before that, I would like to call upon Shri Shyam Parande ji, our Secretary General of ARSP and Indian Council for International Cooperation. And he is the one of the forces behind raising awareness about Roma community in India. So without any delay, I would like to humbly request our Secretary General to deliver the welcome address. Sir, floor is yours.
Namaste and welcome everybody. I am glad to invite you all and welcome you all. This webinar, and I am delighted to know that delegates of more than 10 countries have joined this call webinar. Human rights has been an issue since long, and that issue for the largest minority community in the whole of Europe, the Roma community, pertinent all the time on our mind. Today we have two organizations coming together. Center for Roma Studies and Cultural Relations under ARSP, or Indian Council for International Cooperation, and Human Rights Defense International. With me is the Secretary General of HRDI, Rajesh Gogda, a prominent lawyer in the Supreme Court, and also for many government institutions in the University of Delhi. Well, 2nd August, as you all know, the day that we commemorate for the Romas we lost during the World War. This is all recorded history, and yet nobody talks about it. That's how we decided under CRSCR center here in Delhi. Every year we will be commemorating this day together with Roma and other human rights activists. Start with this group and go beyond globally, reach out to all Roma, or rather human rights groups, so that we generate our voice in a better way. And represent this voice in the international arena, so that it is heard loudly for the human rights of Roma communities spread across the world now. Initially, it's more of European issue, but all over the world, this has to be raised. TRSCR organizing regular talks on Roma activity and status of Roma community in many countries. Till now, we have conducted something like 10 lectures, monthly lectures. And we are happy that Roma community regularly, activists regularly join that lecture. We also send news bulletin, monthly news bulletin that's circulated all over, raising the voice of the Roma and developments, positive developments, wherever they be. We have ARSP and CRSCR has till now organized 2 international conferences in Delhi. And the last conference, 2018, delegates also traveled to Kannauj and Lucknow, which were major centers of migration. We are planning another conference later this year. We would like to invite you either connect online or be here with us for this conference, keeping upon limited numbers that we can invite. Depends upon that. And we'll continue our struggle, be together in this Roma rights activity, as well as connecting Roma community with the country of their motherland origin, what we call in Hindi Bharat Mata. And with that in mind, tomorrow we are celebrating in India festival of brotherhood called Raksha Bandhan, where we tie thread on our wrists, and it is tied by either sisters to the brothers or even anybody to anyone. That we protect our culture, we protect the human values, and we protect the dharma. And with that in mind, we will also be celebrating 75th year of Bharat's independence, India's independence, coming 15th of August. I greet you on both these occasions, the Raksha Bandhan festival, as well as 15th August Independence Day, the 75th Independence Day, what is known as Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And with that greeting, I conclude my welcome remark. I welcome you again that you have joined, and hope to see you again sometime soon. With that, thank you and namaste.
Thank you very much, sir, for your welcome address. And you give the brief account of the Center for Roma Studies and Cultural Relations, how under your guidance, the center is running and trying to establish or expand the network with Roma communities. Thank you very much for your valuable remarks. Without any delay, because we already got delay a little bit. So we have today the first speaker, Dr. Shaban Saliu. He, as I mentioned, that the ex-member of parliament, he was the ex-member of parliament of Republic of Macedonia, and he was also the director at Protection and Rescue Directorate of North Macedonia, and he is a legal luminary, an expert in constitutional affairs in North Macedonia. Besides that, Dr. Shaban is the fighter for Roma rights and a strong voice for Roma issues related to education, health, and housing in North Macedonia. So it is our great pleasure and honor to have you as one of the speakers in this conference, this very important conference. So I now humbly request to Dr. Shaban to deliver his speech. He is going to speak about the genocide of Roma in Balkan Peninsula in historical perspective. So now this virtual room is yours, sir. Please, you can deliver your very illuminating speech. Thank you very much, Mr. Shaban.
Thank you, dear Mr. Shyam Parande, respect colleagues and all present at this conference. Allow me to greet you and the same time thank the organizers of this conference for the invitation. At the very beginning, let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Shaban Saliu by vocation. I am a lawyer, a former MP in the Parliament of the Republic of Macedonia. I have been working for the protection of Roma rights almost all my life. Today's topic of the conference falls precisely in the area of human rights, and here is genocide as the ultimate form of the permanent discrimination that has been practiced since their settlement on the territory of Europe. Terror, inhuman and discriminatory treatment, as well as mass destruction of members of inferior groups by those who consider themselves superior, is a characteristic of a time that left deep traces in the development of humanity. It is about Nazism, whose Nazi ideology proclaimed a racist policy. Due to the Nazi concept of racial difference from the Aryan race, Roma, Jews, as well as all those who did not support the Nazi ideology, such as communists, become the target groups of the Nazi ideology, political concept on liquidation. It determined the Nazi ideology as racist and hegemonic. This ideology realizes its most tragic dimension, especially towards Jews and Roma. The different attitudes in the scientific community regarding whether or not the Roma were included in the Holocaust and their genocide in the Second World War, the current scientific discourse whether besides the Jews and the Roma were included in the genocide. The absence of official document and data as an institutional memory for the suffering of the Roma in the Holocaust period. Furthermore, the absence of an official figure for the victims and the lack. May I continue? Continue?
Yeah, continue, please.
Yes, continue, please.
Lack of public speaking about the liquidation of the Roma in the Second World War made it necessary for us to open the issue on the Roma in the Second World War. The genocide committed against the Roma in the Second World War can be discussed from the several scientific aspects due its interdisciplinary. But considering that I come from the former Yugoslav Republic, that is from Macedonia, I would like to give a brief overview of the happening in the discourse period in Yugoslav at that time. I will win the concentration camp in Jasenovac. Following the example of Nazi Germany, the Jasenovac concentration camp began operating in the Balkan on August 21, 1941, and was disbanded in April 1945. This camp has become synonymous with fear and horror, a place where the most heinous murders took place is in third place for the number of crimes and murders committed. While system of mass killing were applied in other Nazi camps, in Jasenovac, the same genocide was carried out in a way that has not been recorded in the history of the human race. A variety of hand tools were used for maiming and killing, which is actually the basic characteristic of the Ustash movement. The number of victims in Jasenovas was unknown for a long time, but with the list of names collected by the curators from the public institution, Jasenovas gave the number of 72,193 victims. But according to the authors of the list, the collection of data is not yet closed and not final. In this camp, in the village of Ustica in Croatia, there are 24 mass gifts of Roma where 16,173 Roma were killed. Of them, 5,068 children, 5,068 men, and 4,077 women. During the period, the Saimište camp operated on the territory of Serbia. From December 1941, they beginning brought the two camp in this Jews and Roma in this camp. The condition of the Roma were very difficult compared to the condition in which the Jews were placed. The most difficult was the problem of hunger. Many in this camp died of hunger and various diseases are result of the famine. There is almost no data about what happened to the Roma in Macedonia during the Second World War. All information relies on the collective memory of the Roma, the sedentary nature of the Roma, but also their greater belonging to the Muslim faith allow them to have a more favorable treatment because what happened to the Jews from Macedonia who were deported and killed in the Treblinka camp did not happen to them. Roma from Macedonia at that time were not taken to concentration camp. It was this more favorable treatment that allowed the Roma in Macedonia at that time to survive their war with fewer victims compared to other nationalities living in Macedonia at that time, but also a smaller number compared to the Roma who were killed in the camps that were established in other parts of former Yugoslavia, such as Jasenovas, Saimište, Bajnica, Topovski Šupi, and others. This is just a brief overview of what happened to the Roma in the Balkan Peninsula during the Second World War. In the end, I would like to mention that a few years ago in Macedonia, August 2 is commemorated the day when in 1944, the last group of 2,097 Roma and Sinti, several elderly people, women and children, were killed in the gas chambers of the concentration camp in Auschwitz-Birkenau as a day of remembrance for the victim of the genocide in the Second World War. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shaban, for your very, a very informative speech. And you very briefly talked about the, the killing of or murder of Roma community in the former Yugoslavia during Second World War. And you also mentioned that there is no data of killing of Roma in the Republic of Macedonia. So it is the quite normal phenomena. Still, it is very difficult to ascertain the number of the victims of Roma Sinti killed or massacred by Nazi regimes and its collaborators during the Second World War. However, thank you very much for your very informative and illuminating speech. Now we have our speaker, the Dr. Joanna Talewicz, and she is the assistant professor at the Institute of Ethnology and Cultural Anthropology in the University of Warsaw. And she is or was a guest lecturer in the universities, in different universities, like universities of United States and Europe, including Harvard University, Columbia University, Rutgers University, Stockton University, the University of New York, and the University of Helsinki. So Dr. Joanna is also member of the Polish delegation in the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. So she will speak on unspoken past, history, memory, and education of Roma since the genocide. So now I would like to call upon Joanna to deliver her speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for invitation. I'm very glad to be here with all of you, and I'm very happy to speak about education, about the contemporary challenges in the context of history, and also spread awareness about the tragic past of our society. As you know, my name is Joanna. I came from Poland, and also I would like to add that I came from a Romani community from Poland. I was born in Oświęcim. Oświęcim is a town where Auschwitz-Birkenau was situated during the war. But now I live in Warsaw, but I have to tell you that I'm very connected to the history of the Holocaust and of my town, also because of my individual reasons, because of my family history. My father is Roma, my mom is Jewish, so it's very close to our family identity as well. And what's more, I would like to also tell you that I was involved to organization of commemoration in Auschwitz-Birkenau when I was a teenager. I remember first commemoration in Oświęcim. I was a 14 years old girl. It was in 1994. So, and I remember that only few people were with us, with my father, with my family, with a few people from Auschwitz Museum and from Jewish community. And now the official anniversary, which is organized on the 2nd of August in Oświęcim, has official character and attract attention of international community, including Roma from Europe and from all over the world. But not only Roma, also non-Roma people are with us every single day, which is very important, especially in the context of education and in the context of contemporary challenges connected to anti-Gypsyism and racism and discrimination of Roma society. Let me start with the word of my colleague, of Polish sociologist Sławomir Kapralski, who wrote in his text entitled "Why Teach About the Romani Holocaust," who stated that the ignorance of what happened to the Roma has also a moral dimension. It prevents us from perceiving them as the victims of racial persecution supported by the entire civilization potential of modern Europe, which in turn makes it difficult to free oneself from perceiving the Roma in terms of fixed stereotypes that contributed to their tragedy and are still responsible for the discrimination against this community. Stereotypes about Roma have had a long history, perceiving us as outsiders who are not European, who are work shy, asocial, socially unjusted people, who reject the idea of development and modernity is deeply rooted among European society. In this context, I would like to emphasize that the persecution of the Roma and Sinti did not begin with the Nazi came to power. Romani people became scapegoats through the use of old and well-known stereotypes manipulated by the Nazi propaganda. The Romani genocide was a result of a complicated process, the result of biases already existing and a Nazi regulation based on a racist ideology. Between 50–70% of Roma and Sinti, of course it's estimated numbers, were murdered during the war in the death camps of occupied Europe. In Poland, they were also deported to the Jewish ghettos. They were sent to the gas chamber together with the Jewish people. They were also victims of mass extermination outside the camps in Poland, Ukraine, and also Belarus. However, it wasn't until the 1890s that history of the Roma and Sinti Holocaust began to be studied. Today, the Roma and Sinti are the largest ethnic minority in Europe, and they still continue to face unacceptable discrimination and unequal access to basic services. According to a report by European Fundamental Rights Agency, about 80% of interviewed Roma lived below the poverty line in their country. Every third Roma lives in the building without tap water. Every third Roma child lives in a household where someone went to bed hungry at least once in the previous months. 50% of Roma aged 6–24 don't go to school, while highlighting persistent barriers to employment, education, housing, and healthcare. The document also shows that 4 out of 10 Roma interviewed felt discriminated against at least once in the last 5 years, but only a fraction of them took steps to report it. Education has a key role in the process of building awareness of the mechanisms of discrimination, the consequences of which may not only negatively affect relations between social groups, but also without a proper response may lead to an eruption of hatred and violence, which we know from the past. On the 1st of July 2020, the Committee of Ministries of the Council of Europe adopted recommendation that support included information about the Roma and Sinti history in the school curricula, in the educational materials, in its member states. The document states that the Roma Holocaust education can be an effective tool in combating all forms of hatred, prejudice, radicalization, and discrimination, and that it can be a significant alternative to the Holocaust denying theory. Education about the Roma and Sinti Holocaust provides an important counterweight to stereotypes and prejudice against our society, raises awareness of the fact that we are an integral part of European societies. It also helps to overcome negative perception and attitudes towards other minority groups. Unfortunately, the school curricula do not include an in-depth look into the history and culture of Roma and Sinti. Another issue is the absence of educational materials, including textbooks, which could be an important inspiration for conducting classes on the Roma and Sinti. Unfortunately, despite the involvement of many teachers, insufficient preparation of most educators for conducting classes about the Roma and Sinti remains a major problem. To sum up, the topic of the Roma and Sinti Holocaust is not taught at schools, neither in a unified nor systematic manner. Taking up the subject and the scope of its analysis depends on the proactiveness, knowledge, and commitment of teachers. Within many European countries and beyond, there is still a high level of prejudice against Roma and Sinti. Hate speech, anti-Gypsyism, and dehumanization of our minority is justified by our culture and way of life. Poverty is seen as a choice or a consequences of attachment to the cultural norms, deviating from those prevailing in majority societies. The image of the Roma and Sinti as a people who generate problems and who burden economic systems creates many threats to them, especially in times of crisis. Tensions and frustrations precede dangerous mechanisms known from history. Therefore, there is a need not only to include education about the Roma and Sinti extermination in curricula, but also to change approach towards the entirety of Holocaust education. As Zygmunt Bauman emphasized in his excellent book, Modernity and Holocaust, the lessons taught by this tragedy must be explored. That is the reason why education about the extermination should go beyond the framework related to the past and include contemporary threats, drawing analogies between the mechanism of behavior of individuals and society in the past and the present. Only this kind of awareness will enable us to effectively respond to contemporary challenges. Technological development and the transfer of a large part of our lives to virtual world additionally affects the mindset of the young people, for whom the time of the war and the Holocaust seems more and more distant. All the more we should make every effort to ensure that historical education takes into account the needs and sensitivity of the incoming generation that functioned in a reality different from that well known to us. There is no doubt that is a huge challenge because it involves rethinking how to educate about the past as well. Visits to memorial sites, although they are undoubtedly essential, are unfortunately not enough anymore. The same is true for a narrative that focuses only on the past. Some time ago, I worked with the Auschwitz Museum. I met with the Polish as well as international groups of high school students to discuss their reflections and emotions after their visits. However, some of the young people remained unmoved, even after spending 3.5 hours at Auschwitz-Birkenau, learning about the history of what happened there. At times, I also heard jokes like, this place could be used to burn all gypsies, or maybe gays as well. This shocked me a lot. This shocked me the most. It was a very, very powerful, negative, but also important experience. And not the only observation related the lack of understanding by young people of the difficult past. Therefore, I'm convinced that we need to make education about the Holocaust relevant to young people living today. We need to be close to them to try to understand the reality in which they are growing up. It is not about trivializing history. It is about creating an effective way of communicating with the young people and delivering a message that will have the power to awaken their empathy. It's also important in the context of our community. We should build bridges. We should build bridges connecting the past with the present day, opening thoughtful and critical conversation about the lessons we can learn from the history. How we began to do this? We should tell the stories. We should tell the stories about individual lives so that young people can begin to identify themselves and thus to be closer to the people who lived during the war. People should also use interactive methods and technology to explore history using the storytelling method of the 21st century. If we don't make these efforts, we will lose the opportunity to open up meaningful conversation about the past, so that the lessons that previous generation had to learn in such a destructive and traumatic way might not need to be learned again. During this year's celebration of the liberation of Auschwitz, it was said that the term "never again" is appropriate today. Wars, ethnic cleansing, and genocide, they are still happening. The tragic past, it's not just the past, it's a part of our reality. Being aware of this obliges us to take preventive measures, and education is our great ally. Let us make every effort to make it effective, impactful, and transformative. It is important for all of us, not only for Romani people, but for all of us. Thank you so much for your attention. I will be very happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanna, for a very penetrating and very educating informations. And you enunciated your, the first-hand views and what you observed and what you studied. And you also accentuated the importance of education about the Roma Holocaust and why it is important, because it is true that in different countries, in many countries, the information about the Roma Sinti Holocaust is inadequate, insufficient. The people are not aware of this brutal and blood-spilling genocide committed against Roma community and Sinti people, Roma and Sinti people. You also talked about the socioeconomic situations. Very important points you noted, that the persecution of Roma Sinti not only happened when the Nazi came to power, but it was a historical perennial hatred and the negative and negative perceptions and attitude towards the Roma community, which has been taking place since 15th century when their arrival in the European countries. So that is the and you also pointed out the absence of the study materials. That is also one of the reasons which discouraged the Romani students to enroll in these schools or secondary and primary schools. And this is the reason why the percentage is very low as compared to the majoritarian populations. Thank you very much for your very educating speech. Now we have the third speaker, that is Mr. Iulian Stoian. He is from Bucharest, Romania. And as I earlier mentioned, that he is the head of the Public Policies Department at the National Agency for Roma Government of Romania. So that is a very important agency which devises, I think, the policies and programs for the Roma community. He's also expert at Roma-related issues like social inclusion, anti-discrimination, human trafficking, and social economy within the Foundation for Open Society. Mr. Stoian holds a legal background and a master in European law with a focus on European social law and European social policy. And he has a rich experience in public policies and public affairs and social inclusions and non-discrimination fields. So without any delay, I would like, I humbly request Mr. Stoian to deliver the speech. Actually, Mr. Coxon, you can put the questions in the question and answer sessions. The first, let the speakers complete their speech, and then after we have the question and answer session, so you can, put across your questions to the speakers.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, but unfortunately I have to leave at 1 o'clock. And I wanted to have 2 minutes to thank Joanna, but not in any long word, but to agree with her vote so entirely, and to say that the study of the Holocaust, the Roma Holocaust, started 50 years ago, and there was as much thought about this in London going on. But my very brief message is that it's just simply not enough today to only look back at the Holocaust, as Joanna says. There is so much going on that is reminiscent of that, and even worse than that. What we are seeing in Ukraine, what we have seen in Kosovo 20 years ago on a huge scale of expulsion of the people of Kosovo and so on. So that I want to tell you that in the Berlin Congress, that is the next World Romani Congress in Berlin, next May, we intend to go to that great monument, the best memorial in Europe, the Berlin Holocaust Memorial to Sinti and Roma, and there to commemorate all that has happened and all that is happening today, a commemoration that will include everyone. And that will be an important message, I feel, to bring the Holocaust of the past into the genocide that is continuing today in one great commemoration. And I thank you for allowing that very brief intervention. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate being here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paksan. Yeah, you have.
Mr. Gratan, sorry.
Thank
Mr.
you very much.
Don't forget Bosnia and Herzegovina, Roma.
We want you to be there at the Congress. I will contact you about that. Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Mr. Paksan and Mr. Dervo. Yes, obviously we cannot forget Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. And you already made the speech, very informative speech in your lecture. So, and thank you very much, Mr. Paksan. We know that you have devoted your life to the Roma cause, and you have been relentlessly, even at this age, you have been relentlessly fighting and struggling for the Roma rights. So we appreciate, and we really hold you in high esteem for this relentless endeavors and efforts which you are putting even at this age. Thank you very much. So
I'm sorry to leave you now, but I will look at the recorded version of the next speaker. So I really appreciate having been here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you.
God bless you, Keka.
Thank you, Zameer, for the invitation to be part of this debate. I'm not here today in my official capacity. I'm on holiday, and yet I found some time to join you, to debate this, to be part of this debate aimed at commemorating the Roma Holocaust Commemoration Day. I'm here in my capacity as a Roma ethnic and someone who had the privilege, I don't know whether this verb is appropriate, to work with tens of Roma survivors of the deportation in Transnistria years ago, while helping them to get to fill in their files to get their official recognition from the German authorities, so that they might they were entitled to get the ghetto rent and so those indemnities for the labor they were carrying out during the war. And to be frank, I will deliver some reflections on the Roma situation in Romania during the Holocaust time. This is obviously starting with the World War II, when at the order of the Marshal Antonescu, racist eugenic measures took place in Romania when about 25,000 Roma women and children were deported to Transnistria, which is currently on the territory of the actual Republic of Moldavia. Almost half of the 25,000 deportees have died on the way by hunger, by exhaustion, or disease like typhus. A first wave was targeting Roma that were considered by the authorities at that time as nomadic. As of July the 1st, 1942, about 11,441 people, among them 6,714 were children, were taken away. A second wave aimed to deport those Roma that were categorized by the authorities as sedentary and undesirable by the Romanian authorities. In this second wave, another 13,176 Roma men, women, and children were deported in September 1942. It took several decades to recognize the suffering of the Roma during the Second World War and the crimes that have been committed at that time. In the history of Roma in Romania is marked by racial exclusion and discrimination, starting from the 5 centuries of slavery, continuing with the genocide during the Holocaust, and then followed by the policy of forced assimilation during the communist regime. The lack of knowledge in our society at all levels and in all age groups of the historical facts that have led to generational trauma, human tragedies, and social stigma, which are still having a negative effect on Roma people in Romania by perpetuating the stereotypes and prejudices against the Roma minority. These situations are placing Romania among the countries which still have a serious need to reconcile with and recognize the institution of slavery, the Holocaust, and the forced assimilation of Roma during the communist regime. This is why we recently, in the recently adopted National Roma Inclusion Strategy, we created a special chapter, a plan of action, if you say so, named Reconciliation with the Past and Recognition of Slavery, Holocaust, and Roma Assimilation. We consider that it is the time that, apart from the 3 decades of Roma policy inclusions in Romania, to address these issues which remained hidden to the general public. In this new strategy, we considered necessary to review curricula and university courses in which this transgenerational historical trauma are researched, studied, and taught to the new generation. Also, it is necessary to continue continuous training for specialized teachers, especially those having a specialty in history or civic education. The third, the establishment of and funding from the state budget of scholarship systems for Roma researchers and the Roma minority in areas such as history, archival and literary historical research, interdisciplinary social sciences, or psychosocial sciences, education science, etc., with the aim of deepening these historical episodes and inform future public policies. Complementing any anti-discrimination campaigns with actions, projects, or programs that bring to the public the 3 types of persecution of Roma in Romania area: slavery, Holocaust, and cultural assimilation. With a wide range of actions, we're considering to add the historical research, thematic cultural actions, organizing public debates among young people, thematic school camps, plastic arts camps, dramaturgy, visual arts, documentaries, or scholarships. Last but not least, actions are necessary to raise awareness among the personalities among the Roma minority in Romania and beyond, in order to help increase the self-esteem of the Roma and raise awareness among the majority of the contribution of Roma, like the other recognized national minorities, to the Romanian and universal cultural heritage. It is also necessary to ensure the synergy with complementary measures and strategies, such as the strategy for combating anti-Semitism, xenophobia, radicalization, and hate speech, where I had the chance to introduce the Roma minority as a policymaker in order to approach these topics in the field of education, in organizing public debates as well, curricula adjustments as regards the lessons about the Romas and Jews during the Holocaust. So all these actions need a particular attention in this newly adopted strategy. Actually, it was adopted last year, and we are seeking to monitor the trends in the public space as regards the anti-Roma rhetoric, the anti-Semitic manifestations, and to measure their degree of risk for the above mentioned minorities. Also, the first steps in setting up a first museum of history and culture of Roma minority have been made starting with this year. I would end my intervention with a few remarks saying that after the fall of the communism in 1989, the Roma civil society has gradually restored, being active in promoting inclusion policies and cultural and identity rights. Romania has assumed its responsibility deriving from its own history and is committed to doing more in terms of educating the new generations. It is important that these episodes of our histories are known through the society so that those tragedies never happen again. We need to do more in educating the new generations, the political representatives, the public institutions, educators, ourselves in a personal capacity, so to speak, so that the society in which we live show tolerance, acceptance, and respect towards diversity in all its forms, embracing the acceptance of the different. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stoian. Basically, the action-oriented strategies and policies are very important to bring the Roma community into societies. Also talk about some policies and strategies by the agencies, include order to train. You mentioned about how synergizing policies and strategies is very important to get that say that not only the Holocaust, but also the slavery and the post-cultural assimilation issues in Mali or in Mali. So that is a very different perspective, very different perspective you spoke about, especially the Roma deportation in camps in Syria and how the reconciliation with the past and memory of Roma community in Romania. Thank you very much for your speech, and thank you for your invitation. And I say thank you very much. Now we have other speaker, Agnes Daroczi, researcher and minority researcher, journalist, and she has been actively involved in Roma rights in Hungary and at European level. She has co-edited a book titled The Fate of Roma During Holocaust. As a Roma activist, she has been relentless pursuing the goal of emancipation of Roma. So, without any delay, I would request the Agnes to deliver her speech.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the kind invitation to this discussion. The history is written by the winners. Let me please to begin with this. but we never became part of the winners. We, our ancestors, some of them survived the Holocaust, but the Roma in general never became part of the winner. So the narrative about what happened, until the last decades, was not written, not told by Roma. The persecution did not begin with the Nazis. And yes, I have to tell you that I am speaking from Hungary, where also in 2006, 2008 and 2009 happened that 6 people were murdered just because they were Roma. How is it possible that nowadays something like this happened after the Holocaust, which also Hungary was as the very last ally of the Nazis part of? Because they never until today, they never face to face the part of the history. They never recognized what they made, because those who committed these local mass murders, persecution, collection of Roma, slave laboring Roma, they never speak about, they never recognized what their personally or their ancestors made. The responsibility remain on the Nazi, and as Verkshay and so on, as also Joanna mentioned, on Roma. These never were clarified. And unfortunately, until today, many of the researchers and politicians are speaking about genocide. But as there is about Roma, they don't speak about Holocaust. And as a reflection for this, the Roma began very strongly to speak about Roma Holocaust. Why? Because if you see the biggest organization like the UN or even the International Holocaust Association for Remembrance Association, International Holocaust of Remembrance Association, accept only those arguments that it was only genocide what was committed against Roma. What does it mean? And here we have to speak also personally about Graham Paxson and Donald Kenricks, and also about Romani Union. The rights and possibilities are never given. We have to fight for them. It's very, very important. They published, in 1971, as the very first Roma Union Congress was established, one of the most important point of them was to speak, to research, and to collect data and information about Holocaust of the Roma. And in 1972, Donald Kenrick and Graham Paxson published the book Bersha Bibachtale. It's very important. Why? Because as we saw, many literature and scientific researchers there were about Holocaust in general, but who speak about the Roma? About the Roma began to speak mainly and first the Roma self, as the movement strengthened itself. Why is it so important? Because what happened as war situation, it's only one as part of the science. But as we are, okay, probably not now, but 10, 20 years ago, we had the chance to find survivors. Who gave sound for them? This is the question. Because mainly from the survivors' testimonies, we can know more. And of course, this is the base to find and to create our narrative. And also to recognize and to teach why is it so difficult, the nowadays situation. And speaking about Hungary and what happened in Hungary, we can see the total persecution of Roma began in just during the World War First with the 50,000 paragraph. In 1916 and in 28 and 38, it was strengthened only. So Hungary did not need special anti-Roma paragraphs as in case of the Jews, because we were never part of the civilized Hungary. They did not recognize us. We were out of the regulations, out of the law. We were, but the question is until when? After the war, in Hungary and in red part of the world, there were very important the giving part of the land to the people, to the very poor. The Roma never became, never received. So this is again one part of nowadays situation. And as Hungary and the majority society never admit what they made, it's very slow the level of the, how to say this, self-knowledge or self-esteem in the majority society to discuss about this, the situation. We have to be there in the school's curricula, our history. And not only the persecution, because this is again a very big failure. If we teach to the next generation always our persecution, the Holocaust, the slavery, and so on, we stop them on the way and they calculate in their mind that we are the nation of the losers. It's very, very important not to tell them this, not to teach them somehow without direct will. And this is why we, as the European Roma Traveler Forum, as I was there, began, and nowadays there is probably worldwide known, to celebrate the 16th of May as the Day of Resistance. We call these days the Day of the youth and bravery. Our past, it's not only a past, but we can feel day by day what happened. And if we can learn from it, this very important to science, to hear the survivors' sound and exactly to recognize what happened and to teach to the majority and also to our next generation, and also to teach them that we are not the nation of the losers. Why is it so important? The human rights movement of Roma, which began very early in early 70s, or probably in Germany even earlier. Can you imagine that until 65, the same data were recognized by German police as during the Holocaust? The same person, Arnold Hermann, was who collected and guarded those dossiers. So we were survivor only, but did not become part of the winners. It's time to finish this. We have to be part of the winners who are writing the history. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss, your very penetrating speech, and as well as emotion. The very bold statement. The prosperity of Roma as a nation of losers.
Anwar, use some other mic. This is not good.
Are you able to
Right. Yes.
No, thank you. So you made a very bold statement, Agnes, that we should not teach only costs.
Again, is Anwar, your first mic is the best.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, but connection is bad.
Okay. So thank you very much. And you talked about you made a very different perspective. Today, we not only commemorate the remembrance of Holocaust, but also make a pledge to improvement of the socio-economic and the human rights and social situations of Roma. And you talk about it is also very imperative to teach the Roma students about Holocaust as well as the contemporary situations of the people. Without any delay, because we have already got delayed, now we have our last speaker, Orhan Tahir. He is a lawyer, political scientist, and journalist. And he was a legal advisor of Citizens for Democracy and a Rule of Law in Belgium, provide legal assistance for strategic mitigation, tackle rights violations, that have not been adequately addressed in politics. Mr. Tahir will initiate his views on the impact of Holocaust on Roma in post-war Europe. Now, Tahir, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First, I want to be sure that everybody can hear me. Can you please confirm? Okay, super. Thank you for inviting me, and I would like to congratulate personally Miss Agnes Daroczi for what she said, because she's absolutely right. And I will actually continue from her words that history is written by the winners, and we are not on the side of the winners. We are on the side of the losers. We are a nation of losers, and it's time to become a nation of winners. How can we achieve this is the most important question. And that's why it's very important to know our past, to know our history, and to analyze it and interpret it in the correct way. So I will speak on the impact of the Holocaust on Roma in post-war Europe. I choose to talk about this topic because it's little researched and it's little known topic. It's not so popular. The Holocaust had enormous impact on the lives of Roma, not just on the Roma who were directly affected by the Holocaust, who suffered from the Holocaust, but also on the Roma who were not directly affected because they were countries where Roma population was not exterminated. But after the Second World War, the Roma in Europe in general were subjected to certain policies, which we might consider as continuation, to some degree, as continuation of the Nazi policy, but in a new light, under a softer form. So it's very strange. That's why it's very strange that 78 years after the end of the Second World War, we are still not sufficiently aware of the impact, of the consequences, of the effects of the Holocaust and the war on the Roma, on the development of Roma during these 78 years in Europe. Because I do believe that the development of Roma and the current situation of Roma in Europe is also a consequence from the decisions taken by the winning states, the victory states in the Second World War, and I will explain why. Let me start with the demographic effect of the Holocaust. The Holocaust had demographic, economic, psychological, political impact on Roma, but I don't have so much time to discuss all the aspects of this issue. So I will focus on two aspects: demographic impact and political impact. Let me start with the demographic impact. It's estimated that the total population of Roma and Sinti and all other people considered as gypsies in pre-war Europe was between 1 and 2 million people before the beginning of the Second World War in 1939. About between 1 million and 2 million people considered gypsies, Roma, Sinti, were lived on the European continent. Between 250,000 and 1.5 million were exterminated during the Second World War as a result from the Holocaust. The data, there is no consensus on the numbers because different sources give different numbers. But most of the scholars today tend to believe that about 500,000 Roma were exterminated during the Holocaust. not just in the gas chambers, not just in the concentration camps, as many people think, but also during the war itself, especially on Eastern Front, especially with the advance of German army in Poland, in the Soviet Union, in Eastern Europe. A lot of Roma perished, a lot of Roma were killed, and we don't know the exact numbers. They were not recorded, or the documents were destroyed. That's why it's very, very difficult to say how many are exactly the Roma victims of the Holocaust. And they were exterminated because they are Roma, not for other reason. So we can divide the countries in Europe in three groups. The first group were the countries where almost all Roma population was exterminated by the Nazis or by their allies. In this first group are countries like Czech Republic, today Czech Republic, it was Czechoslovakia at that time, it was occupied by Germany, the Czech lands, Luxembourg, Belgium, Lithuania. These were countries where almost all Roma population was exterminated. The second group were the countries where more than 50% of Roma were exterminated. These were countries like Germany, like Austria, like Poland, like Yugoslavia. And here is the place to say that although the public attention was so much focused on the fate of German Sinti and Roma, actually, according to the scholars, the highest number of Roma during the Second World War were exterminated in Yugoslavia, on the territory occupied by the fascist Croatian state, the Ustasha state. And that's why about 90,000 Roma, between 80,000 and 100,000 Roma on the territory of former Yugoslavia were murdered during the Second World War. For comparison, according to the scholars, about 15,000 Roma and Sinti and Roma were killed in Germany during the Holocaust, and 90,000 Roma were killed in Yugoslavia during the Holocaust. But as you see, it's not so well-known fact, it's not so popular, and there are not so many research, there's not so much research on this. But in fact, because the Sinti and Roma population in Germany was under 0.1%, 0.1% of the total population in Germany before the war. So that's why the size of the percentage of the murdered Roma in Germany is much lower than the size of the murdered Roma in other countries like Yugoslavia, Hungary, Ukraine, which was part of the Soviet Union at that time. Ukraine was the place where most of the battles took place. Belarus and Ukraine were the territories where the main battles between Nazi German army and Soviet army took place. So it was mass extermination of local Roma people from villages, from towns. We don't even know how many of them were killed because we don't have the records about this. So the highest number of Roma killed is on the territory of former Yugoslavia. These were mostly Roma from Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, mostly these areas which were occupied by Croatian fascists. So this is about the demographic impact. So about 1/3 or 1/4 of the total Roma population in Europe was killed. It's a very, very high number, 1/3 or 1/4 of the population of Roma in pre-war Europe. Especially Central Europe was very much affected. The Roma from Central Europe, almost all of Czech Roma, the local Czech Roma, Moravian Roma, almost all of them perished in the war. And the Roma in today Czech Republic are mostly immigrants from Slovakia. Slovakia was not so affected. Actually, there were no mass extermination of Roma in Slovakia, not a mass policy of extermination. Of course, Roma were discriminated. And here we come to the third group of countries. First group were the countries where almost all Roma population was exterminated. Second group of countries are those where over 50% of Roma were exterminated. Third group of countries are where we don't have records about mass extermination of Roma, which doesn't necessarily mean that there was no mass killings of Roma, but at least we don't have records and we have we don't have witnesses about this. These are countries like Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Slovakia to some degree. Especially countries on the Balkans occupied by Bulgaria and Italy, fascist Italy. We don't have record about mass extermination of Roma in these countries. Even in the case of Romania, about 50,000 of Roma in Romania were exterminated, and the majority of Roma in Romanian lands were actually not affected by the genocide, by the Holocaust. And for these reasons, if we look at the demographic map of today Europe, we will see that the majority of Roma today live on the Balkans and in Southeast Europe, because this was the territories which were less affected by the Holocaust, while the Roma and Sinti in Central Europe were very heavily affected by the Holocaust, because these territories in Central Europe were designed to become part of the German Lebensraum, living space of the German nation. And that's why the Germans were so punctual and so persistent in exterminating Jews and Roma in these lands in Central Europe, where they were planning to settle new German colonizers. The Balkans were not considered as part of the German Reich, and this is one of the reasons for why Roma were not massively exterminated to such a degree at the Balkans. But of course, this is a topic of another discussion, of another presentation. So I will now move to the next aspect, next impact of the Holocaust. Is the political impact. It's extremely important, because there are no much research, no much analysis on this, unfortunately. The political impact has different aspects. First, the denial of Roma Holocaust by the countries which won the Second World War. These were United States, Soviet Union, and Great Britain. The winning countries, the victories in the Second World War, denied and marginalized the topic, the issue of Roma Holocaust. They denied that Roma were victims of the Holocaust in the same way as the Jews. The second aspect of the political impact was the continuation of some of the anti-Roma policies, Nazi policies, after the end of the war, especially in countries like Germany, Austria, and Czechoslovakia. Agnes Daroczi mentioned that Western German police authorities were using some methods, some data collected by the Nazis, some information collected by the Nazis in their work after the Second World War. And in fact, some of the regulations, police regulations adopted during the Nazi era in Germany were in place. They remained in force even after the Second World War. And some of the police officers who were involved in the persecution of Roma and Sinti in Germany were still in office after the war. The same police officers remain in office, not just police officers. And we come here to the third impact, the third aspect. It's the impunity of the initiators and perpetrators of the Roma Holocaust. And here we can say that 90%, over 90% of the people responsible for Roma Holocaust have never ever been tried, have never ever been kept responsible for their deeds. And one of the most scandalous case is the case of Eva Justin, who was anthropologist, racist anthropologist. Eva Justin conducted a research among thousands of Sinti and Roma in Nazi Germany. And she recommended to the Nazi authorities mass sterilization of all Roma and Sinti. And after the war, this same woman in 1947 was appointed as a child psychologist in Frankfurt, in the social services in Frankfurt. Can you imagine this? She has never ever been tried. There were attempts to bring her to justice, but she was never tried. She continued to work as a psychologist, social worker, scientist after the war in Federal Republic of Germany and in Austria. We can mention Tobias Porci, author of the book, The Gypsy Question, the Zigeuner Frage. He wrote in 1938 a book, a pamphlet, a brochure about how to be solved the Gypsy question in the German Reich. And he was a Nazi himself. He sent this book to the chancellery of Hitler, to the office of Hitler. And some scholars today believe that this book, the Zigeuner Frage, was very important. It influenced the decision of the Nazis to exterminate Roma after 1941. But Tobias Porci became a respected businessman, politician in post-war Austria, and he has never given up from his beliefs. And so there are hundreds of cases like this, which show that the prosecutors, the prosecution, the police authorities, the governments in post-war Europe didn't consider it necessary to punish the perpetrators, the initiators and perpetrators of the Holocaust against Roma people. And here is the big difference with the Jewish Holocaust. There was completely different attitude of the state authorities and the winnings and the victors, the state who won the Second World War, completely different attitude towards Jewish victims and Roma and Sinti victims during the war. And here it's very important to say that the fourth consequence was the emergence of the international Roma movement. The international Roma movement emerged as a direct response to this impunity, to this injustice after the war, because Roma were not recognized for victims of the Holocaust. Roma were not compensated financially. Roma were not included in the lists of the victims. The German courts for years have been rejecting any claims of Sinti of Roma survivals in the genocide for compensations. And this continued to 1982, when the federal German government finally recognized Roma as victims of the Holocaust. But this was a result of 38 years of struggle of the international Roma movement. And here is the place to mention the names of the founding fathers of the international Roma movement, who played a very important role for the recognition of the Roma Holocaust. such people as Ionel Rotaru, as Vanko Ruda, Slobodan Berberski, Shaib Yusuf, Jan Cibula, Gratan Paksan, who was participant in this panel, and many, many other people. We should not forget about their contribution, their role. And we should clearly say that that American, British, and Soviet authorities were they knew that Roma were also exterminated for racial reasons as victims of the Holocaust, but they didn't want to include Roma on equal footing with the Jewish population as victims of the Holocaust. Why they didn't want to do this? Here again, we come to the political aspects of the Holocaust, political impact of the Holocaust on Roma. First of all, because Roma were not considered as an important, Roma issue was not considered as an important political issue. And it didn't enter the calculations of any great powers. The great powers, the winning countries, were not interested in the Romani issue after the Second World War. Actually, they were considered this as yet another trouble. They didn't want troubles. And they knew if they recognized Roma as victims of the Holocaust on equal footing with the Jews, this would mean that they give the right, they entitle the Roma to demand, to claim the same things that Jews were entitled to. And they didn't want problems. It means Roma would demand to become politically recognized as a separate nation, as Jews were recognized in the case of Israel. Roma would claim financial compensation, which means that Western Germany should pay compensation not just to Jewish victims of the Holocaust, but also to Roma victims of the Holocaust. And of course, Western Germany didn't want to do this. And Eastern European countries, which were under Soviet control, under the control of Stalin, didn't want problems with their Roma populations, because imagine what would happen if in 1945 or in 1946 or 7, the winning countries, the victories in the Second World War, recognized Roma as victims of the Holocaust. Then in Poland, in Czechoslovakia, in Hungary, in Soviet Union, should be conducted research, and Roma should be empowered, Roma should be recognized. And the Soviet policy, the communist policy, was against this. They didn't want to recognize Roma as minority. They didn't want to give any rights to Roma people, because the policy, they conducted the policy of assimilation. So they wanted to silence the Roma issue. They wanted to marginalize the Roma issue, both the Western countries and the Eastern communist countries. They didn't have any interest in raising the Roma issue, because this would mean additional problem for them. They had enough problems with the Jews, because Jews wanted recognition of Israel and wanted compensations from Germany. They didn't want to create additional complications, additional problems. So they did everything possible after 1944 to completely marginalize the Roma issue. And here I want to end, to conclude my presentation, and to say that there is one saying that when you are not on the table, when you are not seated on the table, you are in the menu. Roma were on the menu. Roma were in the menu of the Nazi Germans, who wanted to create Europe without Gypsies, Europe without Roma people. So they wanted to physically exterminate Roma people, but also Roma were on the menu of the victory countries, the winning countries, who wanted to marginalize politically, socially, the Roma people. So the Nazis wanted to exterminate physically Roma. Those who win the war wanted to marginalize politically Roma. And 78 years later, we are still feeling the consequences of these decisions taken in 1944, 1945, because the winning powers, Soviet Union, United States, and Great Britain, decided that they will create a European political order where Roma people have no place on the table because they are in the menu. And that's why the international Roma movement emerged. That's why these people struggled for the recognition of Roma as a nation. And this was the decision of the First World Roma Congress in 1971, that Roma are a nation entitled to compensations and to recognition in the same way as the Jewish nation. This was the logic of the founding fathers of the international Romani movement. And this is something which is neglected even today by the younger generations Roma activists, who try to introduce completely different agenda, which has nothing to do with the agenda of the international Romani movement. So there is a replacement of the initial goals of the international Roma movement. This should be clearly stated. Now, when so many people, so many scholars say that we are witnessing the end of the post-war political order in Europe and in the world, with the war in Ukraine, with the rise of Trump, with the COVID crisis, so many indicators that this world order is over, that was created after the Second World War. Now, we are in a crisis, but also every crisis creates opportunities. And Roma this time should grasp the opportunity to renegotiate their status in Europe in the emerging new political order of Europe. This time Roma should be more clever, wiser, should learn the lessons from the Second World War, the lessons from the Holocaust, the lessons from the Cold War. And we see today what's going on to the Ukrainian Roma. We see today how people in Britain, journalists, deny the Roma Holocaust, say that the Roma Holocaust was something positive, unlike the Jewish Holocaust. A famous journalist said that, Jimmy Carr in Britain. So we have a huge problem because we see revival of fascism. We see denial of the Holocaust. We see people, politicians coming to power who speak like Hitler and Mussolini. But we don't realize that the old world order is over. All the system, international human rights protection system is over, and practically European Roma are without protection today. Nothing works. United Nations declarations, conventions, nothing works anymore. When Orban violates the international law, when Kaczynski violates the international law, when European Union is silently observing the rise of anti-Gypsyism in Hungary, Poland, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, everywhere across Europe. This means Roma are in danger, and Roma need to start thinking politically. Because if we miss this opportunity to renegotiate our status, our place in the next political order, we will again be the nation of losers, as Agnes Daroczi said. This should be finished, and we don't need to be any more losers. We need to learn how to be winners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tahir, so much for your very encompassing and comprehensive speech. You talked about the impact, especially the political and graphic impact of the Holocaust, and pointed out how impunity has been meted out to the perpetrators, especially by those various countries like US, UK, and Soviet Union. Also mentioned that 90% of the people, perpetrators who were responsible for the Roma Holocaust were never tried. You very eloquently enunciated about the demographic, like you classified the three groups of the countries. First group where the almost all of the Romani population were liquidated and exterminated, and the second where the 50%. Where there is no record, there is no data to support what are the totals, what are the number of Roma Holocaust victims. So thank you very much. Already we have exceeded our time limit. Now we have our one of the organizers of Human Rights Defense International, Rajesh Balaji, to deliver. I request him to deliver the keynote address, and after that we will have some questions.
Zameer bhai, आपके आवाज खराब को हो रही है.
Hello. So now I request Rajesh Balaji to deliver the keynote address. Thank you.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Now you can. Am I audible now? Oh. I have attended, must have attended as many as last organized and every time I attended, must have listened to it for more than 7. So every time I listen to them, every time I read it out. So I believe that I know a little bit of Roma. I know a little bit about the Holocaust and first. But every time I listen to the news, so every time there is some addition to my knowledge, activity, addition to my commitment towards the work.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, we don't understand you.
I must confess.
No. Take some laptop. No.
I must confess that
A little closer to mic.
Dr. Saliu and Dr. Joanna Agnes, Orhan Tahir.
भाई माइक बाहर दूर है.
I'm just close to the mic. I will try for my tablet.
Am I audible?
I'm so sorry. You know, there is some technical problem. This is the reason why. Are you able to now hear me? Pua?
Nay, I can hear you very fine, but the problem is the gentleman giving speech. I think the mic is a bit far away.
Yeah, right.
I have trouble hearing him.
No.
I think we all do.
That's what I'm trying to tell you, that there is some technical problem. This is the reason why we are trying to fix it up. So please bear with me, and we are giving another mic. Thank you.
No problem.
Yes, you can now speak.
Okay, fine. I'm so sorry. But I was telling that because of Mr. Shyam Parande, I must have attended as many as more than 50 events with regard to the flight of Roma in India as well as in international conferences. And even our organization must have organized more than 15 events. So every time I listen to the organizers or speakers and meet the I feel that I know a little bit about the cause of Roma. I know a little bit about the fight of Roma. Each time I listen to a new speaker, I realize that I don't know, because each speaker speaks with so much of sensitivity, so much of commitment, that it ignites that activity inside me. And today is the same day, because we started with Dr. Saliu and Dr. Iulian, Mr. Stoian, and my sister Agnes, and at last my dear brother or Mr. Orhan Tahir. So in the beginning of the program, I was a different person. I knew about it, but in the end of the program, when my sister says we are a losers nation, the history is written by the winners, and when my Orhan says that okay, we need to change the strategies, then I think it also ignites commitment inside me towards the cause of it. Anyway, thank you very much, all the speakers, because you just made me a better student of the cause of it. Today, I'm thankful to Shyam Parande for involving our organization in this event. And today, what I want to see, because everyone of us was talking about the Holocaust and the persecution. We were saying Roma, cities, and Jews, the Jews were counted, but the Romans were not counted. But my concern is because when these persecutions and Holocaust were taking place, they were not just the Jews, they were not just the Romans, not just the Gentiles or blacks, which were being prosecuted. There were other perpetrators, there were Nazis over there, there were Germans over there. So I always wonder that how can it be possible that the Germans, who happen to be a very civilized country, they turned into monsters. And monsters to that level that they were just throwing thousands and thousands of children and old people towards the furnace and killing them without any realization that they are putting an end to the humanity. So I just wanted to know always that who were those people? Were they monsters? Did they come from other world, or they belong to this world? And when we read about them, when we realize that all these people were ordinary people, they were professionals, they were artists, they were singers, and these very sensitive people who were having their families, who were having their girlfriends, who were having their partners, they turned into merciless killers. How could it happen that the whole country, German, turned into merciless killers and monsters? So, and when we talk about this persecution and Holocaust, we talk about the victims. We don't talk about the perpetrators. We don't talk about as to what happened to their mind, which changed them from the ordinary people to murderers and persecutors. So these things always cross my mind, and I try to know about it. And as you all know that in Germany, in the year 1933, Nazis got 43% of the popular vote. And when they won this election, it became the Nazi became the Germany's most popular party. And then finally, I just wanted to remind about the election referendum of 1936. This election referendum of 1936, 98.8% of the German population voted in support of Hitler. Level of popularity unparalleled in history. And this election took place just after the passage of the notorious Nuremberg laws, which stripped off all the Jews, Romans, and other non-Germans of all the rights. The two laws, the law for the protection of the German blood in German honor, which forbade marriage and extramarital intercourse between the Jews and Germans, and the employment of German females under 45 in Jewish households, and the Reich citizenship law declared that only those Germans or related bloods were eligible to be Reich citizens. The remainder were classified as state subjects without any citizenship right. The supplementary decree outlining the definition as to who were Jews was passed on 14th November of the same year, and the Reich citizenship law officially came into force on that day. The laws were expanded on 26th November 1935 to include Romani and Black people. This supplementary decree defined Romanis as enemies of the race-based state, the same category as Jews. Third, the Hitler didn't campaign or promised about the Holocaust, but as the Nuremberg laws had shown, his outspoken hatred towards the Romas and Jews, first of all, as Hitler did begin perpetrate the unprecedented atrocities, the German people by and large stood fervently by his side. So as to say it as it is, the Holocaust was not a crime perpetrated by just the Nazis, the political party, but was supported and therefore committed by the German people as a collective. If there is any reason we must remember the Holocaust, aside from its own sake, it is for that we never allow it to happen again. As my friend was right saying that the possibility of a new Holocaust is still there because the Nazi tendencies now are coming up, they're increasing. And but to do that, we have to foresee potential mass killing before they start. And if we have any hope of achieving that critical goal, we need to understand that the mass murderers like the Nazis can rise up at any place at any time. When we are remembering Holocaust, we are also taking pledge that we will not allow it to happen again. No doubt, it will not happen again. But now the problem is as to how to deal with the millions and millions of Roma and Sinti living in the countries around the world and the suffering, the discrimination, even as on date. This statement should come to an end. As my friend was saying, from loser nation, we have to become the winners nation. So the Roma Center in Delhi and our organization, HRTI, we have deliberated upon and have foreign suggestions for the upliftment and amalgamation of the Romas and Sinti, the mainstream of the European Union. Number one, the state should proactively ensure the participation of Roma and Sinti by solving issues related to the lack of personal documentation. Each Roma should know about the country of his origin, country of his refuge, and his social and political status in that country. Number two, state should ensure meaningful participation at all levels of government and ownership for ensuring effective participation of Roma and Sinti in public and political life. Number three, Roma and Sinti women should be able to participate in an equal basis with men in consultative and other mechanisms designed to increase access to all areas of public and political life. Family voting, which is quite popular, should be banned. State should ensure the participation of Roma and Sinti representatives in national and local decision-making process. 5. The empowerment of Roma and Sinti women by promoting the effective and equal participation of Roma and Sinti women in public and political life through the promotion of women's access to public office, public administration, and the decision-making position. Political parties should be called upon to launch Roma and Sinti as candidates as increasing number of educated Roma young Romas and Sintis are available. In HRDI, we believe that the political activism and the civil rights movement amongst the Roma is the need of the hour. We at HRDI are committed to train Roma and Sinti activists whenever they require such training. I'm thankful to Shyam for bringing us together and for and on behalf of HRDI, I assure you all the support to our Roma brothers and sisters. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shri Rajesh ji, for your keynote address. And I also extend I extend very sincere thanks to all of you who are the part of this commemorative event and who, they bear the witness of some all the speeches which are very comprehensive, all encompassing, touched upon the different aspects of the Holocaust, contemporary situations, the modern scholarship, and the almost it touched upon every aspects of the Holocaust and the impacts and the consequences, as well as the reason why this Holocaust was perpetrated, and who are the villains, who were the perpetrators. So thank you very much for being with us today, and I look forward to all of your participation in the future event and programs of Center for Roma Studies and Cultural Relations. And thank you for all your motivation and inspiration to organize such a virtual and the online seminars and conferences and lectures and other activities as well. So I can take only the 2 questions because we have already exceeded the time limit, and we have all the the speakers with us. So I will only time permits me to take only the 2 questions. So if you have any question, please yes, Pua, you can put your questions now.
First of all, I would like to say thank you to Rajesh ji and Zameer Bhai, and I want to thank the Bajat organization for creating this organization to get all our Roma people together. I'm originally Roma from Iran, and I'm very thankful for this organization. And your work is amazing, absolutely amazing. I want to say one question to dear Joanna from Poland. A few years ago, 2 boys from Germany who came from a Turkish background did a Heil Hitler salute in front of Auschwitz. They got fined, and I think they nearly got imprisoned for doing such gesture. I heard from your speech that some Polish people inside the concentration camp were making fun, and they're saying that all Roma should be exterminated. This is a hate crime. If the Polish government and the European Union are not doing such thing about such racial discrimination, this is actual hate crime, then I would really question the European policies on human rights. Can you please let me know what did happen? The Polish police should have been informed. I mean, we are part of the Holocaust with the Jewish people, our brothers and sisters. We suffered the same hate crime as they did. So please explain to me, so Polish government has no law regarding hate crimes and words such as anti-Gypsyism, which you mentioned that in a concentration camp, those people were saying they should have killed all the Gypsies. Thank you very much for your speech, by the way, and I want to say thank you to Orhan and everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Farhani. Yes.
Thank you for this question. Unfortunately, it's a wider problem, and it's not only about the Polish young people, it's about the international groups and people who are visiting Auschwitz, of course, react. We reported this case, and it was investigated, but it's a kind of, I think that police and law, it's of course important, tools, and we need to report, and we need to investigate that kind of behavior to be against, of course. But on the other hand, we observe a lot of, jokes and like comedies, like very, famous people. Like maybe you've heard about a comedian from and the program from Netflix, one person who made the jokes about the Roma Holocaust, and he still works. And in Netflix, he is still famous without any consequences. So, we know where boundaries are, and as I said before, we need to react and we need to report that kind of cases. But when it comes to, public sphere, comedy, jokes, it's another issue. And this is the very problematic. And this same regarding social media. Maybe you've heard about the young people and TikTok, when they try to behave like survivors in gas chambers. Yeah, so it's a kind of their narrative about the past. Yeah, that's why I said that we need to understand their background and where they live and how they rise, and what kind of role social media, YouTube and Netflix and the general new media and technology have an impact on their behaviors. So it's I think it's the beginning of the discussion. It's not only about the police, and it's not only about the investigations. It's also about the sensitivity and about the results which we want to gain to educate, especially young people, why it's so important, why they shouldn't make that kind of joke, how we can do this to give them better and deeper understanding, not only, to act them with the police. They need to feel this, because as I said in my presentation, the time connected to the past, to the Holocaust, is very far from their life. And it will be deeper problems, especially that, survivors and people who remember the war, they're gonna die. It's a natural and biological reasons. So what are we gonna do without survivors, without people who remember this past? It's a deeper discussion. In my opinion, it's also a deeper problem, and it's not connect only Polish government, Polish young people. It's we had a lot of problem in Auschwitz Museum. And it's the last sentence, maybe 2 sentences. I'm sorry to take too much time, but selfies in Auschwitz Museum and the memory sites, jokes, nice pictures. It's a common situation there. So it's also a question how young people are prepared before their visit there. Really, believe me, gas chambers and the most tragic places in the world, probably, they don't have impact which we would like to have and see in the context of education of people.
Yes, we saw the treatment of the Ukrainian Roma by Poland and other countries such as Czech Republic. So I'm not very surprised by the treatment. But having said that, I'm very thankful for what Orhan say. Our Jewish brothers and sisters, they have Israel to support them. And we are very lucky to have India, because we are coming from India historically. So we are hopefully on our procedure of creating this bond with our motherland, which I hope will be very beneficial for our safety and our health in the future. Sorry, I passed the mic.
All right, thank you very much, Hua. And now another question from Dervo. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you to you, Anwar, and other organizers who invite me. You heard me, I hope, for this conference, and I am really satisfied with all presentation and speech. Maybe because we have short time, I only can maybe recommend one small things, how to be winners, not losers. Specific for colleagues Daroczi. She know, and all we know that EU prepare and adopt social Roma inclusion. Still we are social problem for Europe and our states. We never be winners. We had one chance with ERTF, Europe Roma Traveler Forums. We lose this chance. And what is on? My recommendation, my proposal is that over our Roma EU parliamentary people in EU, yes, we can put our agenda on the side of political side, not on social way. Projects, programs, still we do, we be losers. If we have in EU agenda political place, political agenda for Roma, I hope we can be winners. And a lot of people make research. I call our Roma researchers. Come together, sit on the table and discuss. One time forever, make decision. What is official database about victims of Roma peoples? It's hard, it's really complicated, but we must do that. You know, still we be, I said, social case for Europe. We never be recognized like Holocaust victims. We are victims, but Holocaust victims is something where is rights. And what we need to use to be tomorrow winners. Thank you. It's short time. I have a lot of things to tell you and inform you about the Roma Bosnian victims in the Second World War, in the ex-Yugoslav war, and sorry, our researchers don't do research about Roma victims and exterminated Roma people from Bosnia in last ex-Yugoslav war. But similar is that ex-Yugoslav similar with today's politics of West Balkan countries, don't have interest for Roma question. They only accept us like social problems, not political problems. Thank you for your speech. Thank you for inviting me on this conference. I said with my pleasure to be part of the conference like this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Darvo. And I really thank you and I appreciate your presence in this conference. Because you yourself are the human Roma rights, the champion, and you have been fighting for the political rights of Roma in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So thank you very much for being part of this commemorative event. And again, I thank you all the participants and all the speakers today who give remarkable speeches. We were ignorant. Now today we are a little bit educated about the Roma Holocaust, and I look forward to your participation in our next lectures and a conference or workshop. We generally organize all the important days of Roma calendar. So as well as we have taken initiative of organizing a lecture, hosting a virtual lecture of lecture series every month. So thank you very much for your participation, and with that it is kind of motivations to us to continue with such kind of activities, which is very important, especially for us to raise awareness of the Roma plight and the Roma situation in India among the Indian populations. As the Pua said, that the Roma people are looking to India and they consider India as their backbone and the platform from where they can fight for and struggle for their rights, and whether it's a political or social or economy, whatever rights. So thank you very much. And Agnes ji, she made a very means she has given the audacious dream how Roma can be. It is a big challenge for the Roma scholars and the Roma academicians and the Roma strategists or the policy makers. How, rather than we are harping on the same tunes, how we can be, the part of victorious teams, the victorious groups, and a victorious nation, rather than being a part of losers. So thank you very much again. And now we have already extended the time, and I also appreciate your patience and your speeches. And Orhan, Joanna, and Agnes, and Stoian, thank you very much. And Ramanaikji. And there is a lady, that's Georgeta Pintelli. I don't know whether, so by the way, thank you very much. And Shaban is also there. Thank you. And now it is time to say goodbye. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.